Hi everybody, welcome to our YouTube channel. Today we thought we would do a update to our video about the long stay visitor visa for France, also known as the retirement visa or possibly used as a type of digital nomad visa. We have a video that's a couple of years old, but we thought we would give you an update on how this great route can work for you to get your foot into living in Europe, because it is one of the more flexible routes if you meet the requirements. So let us start with the purpose of the visa. The purpose of the long stay visitor visa is to allow you to reside in France without needing to work in France. So the main requirement is that you can prove that you have sufficient financial resources to live in France, enjoy the country, enjoy the culture without needing to work in France and interfere with the French labor market. So that would mean that this category is relevant if you're seeking to retire in France and have sufficient means, but it can also work if you have a remote job or very flexible work where you're only overseeing certain elements of a company in South Africa or elsewhere in the world, but not actually conducting much active work on a day-to-day basis and seeking what a lot of people also refer to as semi-retirement. So the main requirements for the visa will be, as I mentioned, the proof of funds. With regards to the proof of funds, there's no specific amount that the French government has set, but we recommend that you have an eye towards what the annual French minimum salary is and try to exceed that. Generally, the more you can show, the better. At the moment, we're finding that we would probably recommend that you have around 22 to 25,000 euros per year minimum. But as I said, the more you can show, the better. How can you show this income? So this could be a pension payout. It could be a lump sum of savings. It could be income that you receive from renting out property in South Africa, or it could be income interest that you receive from your investments. And as I said, it could also be remote work, provided that that work has nothing at all to do with France, and ideally also not any other company in the European Union. Those documents that you would need are just your bank statements, property deeds, whatever is relevant to the type of income you're proving. Secondly, you would need to show that you have proof of accommodation in France. We recommend that ideally you are able to show accommodation for at minimum 4 months, ideally the full year that you are planning for the first visa issue. And you would be able to show a lease agreement. If you're staying with friends or family, that could work. The reason it needs to be long-term is that you need to evidence that you are planning to stay for more than 3 months. That's why you're applying for a long stay visitor visa. Next, you will be required to show that you have health insurance for the full duration of your stay in France, which, as I mentioned, is 1 year. So with that, it needs to be a full health insurance meeting a minimum 30,000 coverage, 30,000 euro coverage, covering repatriation. It cannot just be a travel insurance, which is also usually limited to 6 months only maximum. Lastly, you would need to sign an undertaking that you will not be working in France, and also it's usually helpful to submit a motivation and explanation as detailed as possible what your purpose of the stay in France will be. Once you have all those documents together, the process will be that you submit the application online, which is something that we would be able to assist you with. You would then attend an application appointment at an application center in your country of origin or residence. And the processing time for the applications, at least in South Africa, is usually between 3 and 5 weeks. So it's really not something that takes all too long. It's the preparation that needs to be done diligently, but the processing time is usually quite reasonable. And then once the visa is issued, it would be a visa for the duration of 1 year that allows you to reside in France without taking work up there. After arrival in France, it is important that the visa needs to be validated online in order to maintain its validity. Otherwise, even though it says it's valid for 1 year, it wouldn't be valid for 1 year. And once that validation is complete, your immigration process is largely complete. The last step would then be to still attend a medical appointment, which is mandatory for anybody immigrating to France. You would be invited to that by the French government. So that is the long stay visitor visa in a nutshell. It provides quite a flexible option to get into Europe, to start residing there while you cannot work there. It gives a great opportunity to either retire or to, if you have sufficient means otherwise, just reside there and be able to explore France and Europe more broadly. When I say Europe more broadly, the benefit of this visa is that you will be able to travel with it to other Schengen countries as long as your stay in those countries is limited to the 90 days for every 180 days and the rest of your time is spent in France. There's no minimum requirement of how long you need to stay in France. So if you wish to come back to South Africa, that's okay as well. And that visa can also be renewed once you're in France on an annual basis.